But first this morning, it is time to once again explore the hospice story. And all month long, we have been shedding new light on this facet of medical care. And we have been learning how extensive that care can be for both the patient and the families. I've learned so much this month. Today, we learn about the services offered to families once their loved ones have passed away. Here to discuss the grieving and healing process is the team from Wexner Heritage Village, Zusman Hospice. Annie Dalby is the Director of Bereavement Services. Deaconess Linda Frank and Rabbi Sharon Mars are both with Zusman Hospice chaplains, and we welcome all of you to talk about this subject. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Such a part of hospice that no one thinks about. And Rabbi, I want to start with you because this is something that families don't talk about, and yet they know the end is near. Why is it important for not only the person who is in hospice, but the families deal with this?
Well, it is such an important component. To have spiritual care throughout anyone's life is really important, but particularly for somebody who may be nearing the end, and for the family to have support is really critical. The spiritual dimension cannot be ignored. We feel that we are, as the hospice spiritual care team, we are there as spiritual companions, walking on this sacred journey with the patients and the families, and we would all want somebody to accompany us toward the end of our lives, holding our hands, hearing our wishes, giving us the dignity that we deserve, and ultimately being reminded that we're created in the divine image, and we can even elevate this part of our lives to a level of holiness which is quite unsurpassed.
Annie, you really work with a lot of folks in support groups too. How would you define bereavement support? What does it mean to the family and to the person in hospice?
Bereavement support is really there to accompany people on their grief journey, and whether people are aware of it or not, whether they can name it.
Isn't it? Yes. Whether they're aware of it or not.
Whether they can name it or not, they're going to be grieving, both during a person's death process and certainly after a loved one dies. So, and in my experience, hearts break just as often as arms and legs, and bereavement support is to help people when they are dealing with that brokenness. And grief can affect you mind, body, heart, and soul. And so there are many programs available at Zusman to help on an individual level and to help in a group setting, to help people who don't even want to come with support groups can come to different kinds of programs to get help.
And this is all part of the process. Even if, as you say, people don't realize it or want to deal with it, it really is part of that process.
Definitely. And in my experience, people are very isolated because there's not a lot of support, even in general society, for people who are bereaved. And people don't know what they're going through. They don't know that it's happening to them. And part of that is raising that awareness and then giving them the tools and the supports to help them on that journey so that they don't have to walk that alone.
Deaconess Frank, what do you find are challenges? Maybe, as Annie indicated, people don't want to face it or don't even realize they need to.
Right, and that's why that's such a good question. And it begins in part because when we talk about spiritual care or talk about chaplains, we tend to think of that space and that service bereavement offers in terms of religious language, in a religious context. And it's certainly true, some of us explore spirituality in that religious context. That said, everyone has a period of time where they ask themselves questions. What is the meaning of life? What's the purpose in suffering? Why do bad things happen? And Sharon and I step in to hear those questions. We know that they are best answered when we give the questions voice and when there is someone to give us a safe, non-judgmental place to listen to those questions.
Sharon, Rabbi Sharon, when do you step in and, I don't want to say necessarily force a family, but maybe challenge them a little bit to see this is what they need, to talk about it, and they'll feel better if they do?
Right, and we know that, but the families don't always know that. So in many instances, it's all of our jobs to help facilitate those tough conversations that ultimately we know will serve them and serve the patient.
And at Zusman, you offer spirituality guidance in bereavement process for all faiths, am I correct?
Absolutely. We're a Jewish-founded institution, which means that we go by Jewish values and principles, which actually flow very harmoniously with the values and principles of hospice.
Well, I thank you all for being here. We've just touched the tip of the iceberg, I know, on something like this. But we thank you, and hopefully get some folks out there to think about these things. It's nice to have you here.